Don't worry about your intro. Just
Intro's gone.
Intro's gone.
Y'all got the intro?
Intros are done.
So yeah, so the point with discipline is that yes, it's never, especially for new managers and new leaders, it's not like a fun thing. And so I want to just shine some light on it and spend a lot of time today. We're actually this is all we're going to talk about for the rest of the meeting is discipline. And so I think now is the perfect time. We've seen we have a lot of growth, a lot of new leaders, a lot of new sites, and a lot of teams. And so what I've started to see, and I think a lot of us have started to see, like some things not getting called out on the sites, whether it's loading that's just a I don't know, not up to watershed standards, or it might be uniform infractions that are just slightly off. It's not like these major things are just way off, but just slightly little things that are just not quite up to the standard. It might be guys that aren't within the beard policy because they didn't shave that 2 days before or something like that. And so I just want to share this with you, share some experiences with you, and just hopes that we get better, that this isn't something that is scary, and that we'll see that it truly is just about loving people and serving the team. So yeah, let's jump in. So raise your hand if you don't like to discipline.
Wait, raise your hand if you don't like to discipline.
Do not like to discipline.
It's not on my top 10.
Yeah, right. I don't think. Oh, look, a couple of people didn't. Okay, that's
okay.
good.
I mean, it's okay.
That's great. So raise your hand if you do. Does anyone love to discipline? Love it.
Hal Bailey. I see that shot out real quick.
Man, it's grown. Yeah, I think there's something about it's really, I've really grown to, I would say I appreciate it. I think appreciate the value of what comes from that. But,
I think I think it's the right word. I think that because I too have done that, like where discipline has such good, there's so much fruit to it, and there's so much purpose that I have grown to be like, I mean, I don't like doing it, but like I do see the purpose in doing so. Yeah,
because you've seen the fruit of it.
Yeah.
So as a site manager, I always put myself in y'all's shoes, because I remember early on, like those first couple of years of just kind of learning and kind of just figuring out kind of how to manage and how to lead. There's the two worst part of the site manager's job. It's two that I don't think there's anyone that would argue with me, is incident reports. You get that pit in your stomach, right? When you hear this customer was in an incident, they want to talk to a manager, or just something like that's the suckiest part of the job. And discipline, I think those are probably the two worst parts. Is just because there's something about it it's uncomfortable. It's for whatever reason. So it's interesting. So discipline today, I think in our culture, in our time, it's seen as a dirty word. I think it's like, I had to be disciplined. I had to be, this guy yelled at me. He wrote me up. I had to discipline my team. It's an interesting thing, but I think that's probably why we don't like getting discipline or doing discipline. So it's an interesting thing. So discipline. Yeah, Dan, you want to talk about like the root word? Like where does that come from?
Yeah, so the root word is actually to learn. And so it comes from, and another maybe word you've heard before is disciple. It comes from this idea of like when you're being disciplined, it's usually by your disciple. So you're actually learning, you're under someone's leadership, and you're actually becoming better. And so the word learn, which is interesting, is like it's a learning opportunity. So it's not even like a negative. It shouldn't be like so harsh of a word like it is today in today's culture. It's actually one that's actually very kind. It's actually you would look into the frame of like a student or a son or daughter. You are being like, you're learning what life is like and what the job is like. And that's what the idea would be, is like you're just learning about this process, and you're going to have someone that's going to discipline you. And what that could mean is they're going to teach you what the right thing to do is, right? And we're going to talk about this.
I think so to when you hear the word discipline, think of the word learner. As you're disciplining others, they are learning. And so that's kind of the idea. So think of this. Let's do
Did I jump the gun?
No, we're fine. Okay, so there's two different things, right? So we have, I think a lot of times we use the word punishment and we think of the discipline and punishment and consequences. Those are all kind of in the same realm. They're interchangeable. But I want to make it clear for you guys that literally, yeah, discipline is to teach. That's what it means. To be someone who's disciplined is a learner. Punishment, on the other hand, what that does is it focuses on past behavior in a negative sense.
Give me an example.
So punishment can say, hey, you were late. Remember that time you were 15 minutes late? I'm going to now dangle this. I'm going to hang this over your head and bring it up every time you work for the next month. And I'm punishing you for that. Oh, it'd be horrible. Whereas discipline, if you're going to teach and have this mentality of you're like, hey, hey, here's the policy of, you need to be on time, and there will be consequence. We can talk about it later on, but yeah. What do you think?
I don't know. The one way, some ways I could view it is like discipline is like when people just go off the path, like whether they stop tucking their elbows for loading or they it's almost like it's like using the staff for the rod, like, right? It's like if you have this teachable young, person who's like, no, I want to do good, and like they just start doing something incorrectly, you're like, hey, wait, tuck in the elbows, like stop swinging your arms. It's easy to love that person, but that would be under the category of discipline. So almost like for you, the way the Shepherd fans, that'd be like using the staff. It's a gentle nudge, it's a tap on the shoulder, it's get back in line. But then there's also times where you have someone that deliberately doesn't want to do it. And that is like almost a different word than discipline. That's like, I need to hold them accountable and give them consequences. And that's like where there's like a difference of like, wait, they need to know that they are doing something wrong. And that's where there is the balance. But if you go and treat everybody like they are deliberately doing something wrong, they will be like, they lose, you lose your, not authority, but you lose your kind of their word.
Position in their mind, like the leadership in their mind.
Yeah, because like some people just might be making easy, light mistakes, and they might be making it honest, true, and my bad, I forgot to do this. It's like, and then you just treated them like they were deliberately, on purposely hurting your feelings or breaking the law. So there's such a balance to discipline and punishment and consequences.
So, just think about discipline in a positive sense. Like the goal is correction's going to be made, and hey, there's hope for the future. Punishment, on the other hand, is focusing on the negative, and it's focusing on the past. And there is times where that needs to happen. That punishment is important, that consequences are important, but not when it comes to, I think, leading the team on a consistent basis. So I love that picture of it's a sculptor. Discipline is a sculptor that's looking at this block of marble that sees what it could be underneath and just slowly chips away one hammer at a time, slowly revealing who that person could be. It could be in any scenario. Think about the loaders, right? When you're training a new hire, when they come for the first time and they're seeing to load, like they don't know what they're doing.
They are a blob of clay.
So you're constantly making little changes in their loading so that they are slowly chipped away. It's slowly small disciplines to get better and better. And then it's all of a sudden this motion, which wasn't natural before, is now natural. Really and you can use that for anything. Use it for your golf swing, use it for a runner training for a triathlon. They have discipline that they've done in their life to change their diet or to run more, run farther. It makes them better. It's a cool idea. So I love it. So just like the sculptor, there's actually, so I always think about when you have discipline, there's actually a proverb in scripture. It talks about it, that it says the father, so it says, he who spares his rod hates his son, but he who loves him disciplines him promptly. So a father that spares the rod, which is spares the discipline or the hurt, hates his son. It's interesting, but he says that he who loves him disciplines him promptly. And so I think before we jump into that, but you've heard the term spare the rod, spoil the child. And I think this is so true with kids that are not disciplined turn out to be spoiled, or they push back. But this scripture, what it is it's saying that a father who disciplines his son loves him And the more I read this, and the more I really did a lot of research in discipline, I started to see this common thread of timing, and that timing matters in doing it promptly. Think about if someone comes into work and they're unshaven, or they're like,
Sure.
2 days, they have a 2-day shadow, not a 5 o'clock shadow, a 2-day shadow, a 48 o'clock shadow. And we don't call them out right away. And then they come in the next day, and then we tell them to shave. What does that look like? Like they would say, well, why didn't you call me? Why didn't you say something yesterday? We worked all day together. Yeah. Or I have my cell phone out 10 times. And why are you saying that now I need to put it away? You saw me 10 other times. Yeah. It's so important to that. The timing matters completely, that we do it promptly. Yeah, it's so true.
And I'm going to share a little story on the proper side. I use this with my boys all the time, actually. So my son, like, if I'm delivering a consequence, and he's just like, why did you do this? Like, why are you hurting me? Or why are you taking stuff away from me? It's like, it's because I love you. Because if I spare the rod, which is the punishment or consequence or discipline, if I don't do that, my son, who might be angry or yelled at his mom or whatever it might be, if I don't correct that, that means I hate him, because he will continue to do that. He will continue to be angry. He'll continue to yell, or whatever the case may be, or whatever child it might be responding to. But this has been such a freedom in how I lead my kids. Or my team, of just what does it look like to actually show genuine love? It's actually to disciple them. It's to teach them. It's to show them what's wrong and what's right. And anyways, this verse has been so important to me as a father. So
same here. And I ditto all what you said. I think my kids, one thing is that they know, whenever it comes to discipline, I always start with this. And
I do the same thing.
If I don't do this, I don't love you. And you know that I love you. And like, my kids are, between 5 and 10, they understand it. They get it. They go, I know you love me. Let's do it.
So that's the same thing.
That's crazy.
That's the same with my son Cameron. I do a lot of discipling with my son. A lot of discipline, and I'm discipling him. But he knows I love him. So I'll even ask him, like, do you know I love you? He's like, yes, of course, I know you love me. Then great, I have to hold you accountable.
And that's where I think you can tell your team or the people that you're disciplining, this is because
I want you to be successful.
That's why.
I want you to thrive at Watershed.
You said you want to be a manager here. And if you can't get here on time, how are you going to lead others?
Has anybody ever, maybe just take a second. Has any leaders here ever used that mentality of like, I know I probably have heard you say before, like, I know that you want to be great, and that's why I'm holding you accountable, or I know you want to thrive, or I care about you and I want you to thrive, so I'm going to hold you accountable. Has anybody ever used that tactic before? I got some hands, I think. Bailey, dude, can you share with us a little bit? You're a great example.
I think the conversation has to be had probably beforehand, like, hey, where do you want to go? Where do you see yourself being, hopefully before any of this stuff happens. But if you can do it like 30 days prior, like, what's your goal to be in the company? Well, I want to be a site manager. I want to be a GM, well, beautiful. And then when the time happens, then that you have to discipline, you can say, hey, I want to make sure I'm holding you accountable to what you said and to reach your goals. And right now your actions aren't matching what your goals look like. And so I'm going to hold you accountable to it. And now, if you can, or if you want to, I still believe in you. I'm still going to pour into you. But this is part of me pouring into you is disciplining you to get you to your next goal.
Yeah, because guess who's the greatest interest of that is the person's own, right? Totally. They want to thrive. They had the dream, or they wanted to grow. And then you're you're literally like a coach / cheerleader / motivator of just like, hey, you set the goal. I'm helping you get there. That's pretty cool.
Exactly. Yeah. You're letting them.
Thanks, Kyle.
Can be in charge of them. One thing I like about the way of the shepherd, it kind of talks a little bit about two different types of discipline, right? The rod and the staff.
Yeah. So real quick, I want to talk one thing that I thought was so interesting about that proverb, and I don't think I've ever really thought about it actually. I've always used this portion of like, that's me. I show you I love him. But actually, I don't think I've ever really focused on it. That's what I love about the Bible is that sometimes you'll read it 100 times or 2 years ago, and you've like forgot something, and you're like, oh wait, now I just reread it, and it hits me different. But this idea of promptly, and I think that's really important, that when timing actually matters. And I love what Justin said, like, you lose their trust when a person breaks a policy and breaks a policy, breaks a policy, no one ever says anything. And then you finally say, all right, you've done enough. Here you go. You've done this so badly. I need to write you up now. That's like, wait, you saw me. You know I didn't do something right. It's so much better to do it timely. So I'm going to talk about the staff and the rod real quick, and how the staff is an extension of the shepherd's arm. And this is really important to kind of get the physical look or the grasp of it, is that when you use the staff of direction and to guide someone, it's within the arm's reach. I'm holding the staff and I'm guiding you and I'm moving you. It's a gentle tap on the shoulder. Imagine a shepherd leading his flock. Sometimes the flock doesn't know where they're going, or even if they're going astray, but the shepherd's meant to be guiding people and then touching them, but that they're within arm's reach. That means it's close to you. You caught it early, right? The sheep starts going to veer right and you're going left. It's like, hey, come on over. It's right there. It's almost like a tap, right? But then with the rod is when the things go too far out and it's too much time has spent and you lost track of where a sheep was, and then they're halfway down the road. So I'm going to read a little excerpt of this book, and I absolutely love The Way of the Shepherd. It's one of my favorites. In the end, however, it doesn't really matter whether the sheep is unruly or well-intended. Throughout your management career, Ted, there will be times when you look up and notice that the member of your flock has strayed well beyond the safety zone. Your vantage point as a shepherd will allow you to look ahead and see the dangers he cannot. You instinctively know that if he continues in that direction, he's bound for trouble. When that happens, a gentle nudge of the staff won't do it, and it is time to step in and use the rod. And that sounds painful, but it's better for the sheep to endure momentary pain than to have its well-being put into jeopardy. So I just think that's such an important idea, is like, if sometimes this action is difficult. Sometimes it's uncomfortable for us. Sometimes it's uncomfortable for the person, but it's ultimately the momentary pain is for their well-being. And I think that's one thing that's too, like when we do give discipline, it's always for correction and for leading them to become better. Like I love that idea of the 20-70-10. The bottom 10 is to move up or move out. But also our intention is for them to move up. We want to correct someone to become better, right? And I think all of us, if you have kids or you can relate to this idea, it's like you want your kids to be great versions of themselves, right? So you're going to always want to lead them. You always want to love them in a way to help them become better. And like the option is not like, oh, they won't be a part of my family. Like that's not to fire them, right? And so then it gets trickier when we get to employees. Like that is an option. You can fire them, but ultimately the heart should be the same. Is that you want them to rise up, you want them to be better. And so when we correct or discipline in any way, it's always for the heart of correction and to thrive.
Yeah, one picture that kind of helped me early on as a manager. When I was thinking about discipline as being kind of this negative thing, and especially as a new dad, when I was just starting to be a manager, was this idea of your kid running down the driveway, and into the street. Like, what would you do as a dad? And it's like, if my kid's going to run into the busy street, I'm going to grab my kid before they get into the street, and they might be running full speed, and I might grab his arm. And it's going to be firm, and it's going to be come back this way. You're about to get hit by a car. And we've had this conversation with my own kids too, where it's like, cars don't see little boys. They hit them. And I love you so much. I'm willing to yank your arm out of the socket to keep you from getting hit by a car. And I've used that for teams and people where it's like, I love you so much. I'm willing to discipline this behavior now before it gets worse. Like that's where he was talking about that there. It's the same thing, like with the metaphor of
or the idea of a baby touching a hot stove.
Hot stove, yeah.
You wouldn't be like, imagine anybody, or even if you don't have kids, imagine it's like your nephew or something is reaching for the hot plate of a stove. Are you gonna be like, oh no, don't do that? Oh no, like no.
Oh, he touched it.
Like, oh, like you're gonna lose it. You're gonna like jump out of your seat. You're not just gonna be like, oh, please don't touch that. It's like, no, because that's not in their well-being. That's not for their good, that you are
You're going to come unglued.
peaceful, or like you just look back at your phone. It's like, no, you're going to become unglued. You're going to react in a way that's going to get the attention.
Yeah, it's so funny. I talked to managers before where it's like, hey, can you work on this at the site or with this person? And I hear I've already told him that.
Yeah.
And I've already told him. Like, imagine that with the kid. Like, well, I told him not to touch the hot stove and he's doing it anyway. I guess he'll learn.
Yeah.
We'd never do that.
Or running the streets more serious.
Oh yeah.
I mean, my kid probably would learn if they touch a hot stove, they would officially learn that it's hot. But still, the street is a little different. That's a life or death one.
It's huge. And so, gosh, it's so important. So anytime you do the discipline, think about it that way. Like, think about it like they're your kids. I think it's huge. So I think a couple ideas. So how to make this practical for you as managers is you're fine. So is think about what is the role of a manager. And so if we make this practical, make this for work.
Hey Justin.
Yep.
Sorry, Isaiah had something to say.
Yeah.
Ready.
Go for it.
So since we're on the topic of where we're talking about the book Way the Shepherd, I know in the book it talks about learning the shape basically of a person.
Yeah.
So whenever we discipline somebody, and the way we go about it won't work for every other person. Everybody else.
Preach it.
Totally.
Preach.
So I believe that we build a connection with our team and everybody around us. And so we understand how everybody functions and works. So the way we discipline somebody may not work with somebody else. And for the ones that know me, I'm very blunt, I'm very outspoken. So that book, let alone, it taught me how to be able to read and understand people a lot better and go out about it different ways. So I think that we need to keep in mind with us learning how our team and how everybody else functions and works and learning their shape, and then going forward to talk to them a different way compared to how you would with somebody else. So that's something I would mind.
No, thank you. Thank you for sharing.
Insight.
I can relate to that. So I'm more like staff led. When I was managing sites, I was definitely more on like the gentle. You guys might know me a little bit. I'm pretty bubbly. I'm pretty easygoing. I'm a pretty easy dude. And so what I would sometimes think is like, and by the way, if I ever receive correction from like H or Grondon, they could just literally say like one sentence in a monotone voice, and I would hear it like, oh my gosh, I gotta change it. I gotta get better. Like Grondon could just be like, hey, this could look better. And I'm like, yeah, no problem. Like I'll like spend the next like days and weeks like trying to get better, and like, because that's all I needed was to know I didn't do good enough. And so what I sometimes did is I translated that into how I led people. I'd be like, hey, I want you to do a little bit better there. And I'd be very sweet. I'd be very monotone. I'd be like, hey, let's try this a little bit different. And then they wouldn't change. And then they wouldn't change. And then they wouldn't change. And I'm like, oh, what do I got to do? Like what I did for me would have worked for them. Mm-hmm. And so what I totally agree with you is that I had to learn like, wait, not everybody's the same. I have to be more blunt with some people. And then that's totally like, you're right. It's all about their shape and how they best learn. So
some need a 2x4 to the forehead.
Oh yeah, I like this.
And some just need a ping pong ball.
Yeah, that's
all it takes.
I love that. So I'm the ping pong ball guy. You hit me in the head with a ping pong ball, I'm like, no problem. I'll fix everything. I'll change my whole life. And then some people need literally a 2x4. So
yeah, that's it. It's so funny. No, and great job, Isaiah. I think that's it's so important as leaders, to know your flock.
Yeah.
Everyone's going to have different, you may have someone you're like, man, he just doesn't get it, just doesn't take it, but he needs more blunt. He needs the bigger 2x4. So good. So thinking about managers and for you guys, like this is another analogy that really helped me is, thinking about what is our role? Do we make the rules that our job is to hold the teams accountable, but do we make the rules? And sometimes I would get like embarrassed because of the rules, or like, hey, this is I don't know, for whatever reason. But yeah, I think so. Think about it this way: is there's a metaphor of the difference between a police officer and a judge is that the judge is the one who creates the law, and the police officer's job is just to uphold the law and to hold the people accountable. So for us as managers, our job is just, we don't make the law, but our job is when someone breaks the law, when someone breaks a policy, we write the ticket.
Yeah.
The judge, would be the owners. The owners are the ones that they make the rules. We don't make it, but we're paid to uphold them. And so having that mindset really kind of clearly took it off of all the pressure off of me as a manager to go, well, hey,
Yeah.
I mean, don't be mad at me that you have your phone out. The owner's the one that made the rule. My job is just to write the ticket. Here's the ticket. Here's the write-up. Make sure it doesn't happen again. And so it made it very, you can kind of almost pull your emotions out of it, when it was that way. So there's another idea, another, metaphor is that, just like in sports, a manager is like the referee, and the referee has to know the rules of the game better than the players, better than the audience and the crowd in the stands. They have to know it better than anyone else. The referee, is the one that blows the whistle the minute that a foul is done, or the minute that a rule is broken. And so you guys as managers, or us as managers, we have to blow the whistle the same way the minute that the line's crossed. Our team has to know you cross the line, blow the whistle. And so I think step one is, do you, like the referee, do you know the rules inside and out? Do you know them front to back? I mean, have you guys ever seen those referees where they're like, hey, you broke, section 42 of statute 900, and like even police officers too, like you broke this, and they know right where it's at out of, the entire rule book. Do you know our rules inside and out? And if you don't get to know them, you can't hold your team accountable to something that you don't even know.
Yeah, that's good. That's good.
So, so I'll share a story. So, my very first, some of you may have heard this one, but my very first manager review, my annual review with the owners up at corporate office. This was young Justin, like 10 years ago. And I was running a site, thought I was doing good. And it was, but it went into, the corporate office across in this big, I've never been reviewed ever in my life. We had this big giant conference table, and you have all the owners sitting there, and they're like, come on in, come sit down. Your team's reviewed you, we reviewed you. And I'm like, oh, great. So I'm sitting there, and they shut the door and come down. They're like, hey, we need to talk. And I'm like, oh no. Like, I could feel like anticipation just building, my palms getting sweaty. I'm sitting there at the table, like, what are they going to say? And they take the packet of all the reviews, everything that I have. And they're like, hey, this is good. Your team loves you. They just kind of toss it. They're like, but we need to talk about something. And I was like, well, what I get on the review? What do you get? They're like, well, it doesn't matter. Your team loves you. You're doing awesome. They're like, but you're a cheerleader. You're an encourager, and which is amazing. We need that. But they're like, there's two sides to the fist of leadership. And right now he's like, you've got a velvet hand, which is great, but you need to have the iron fist. And he's like, you need to be good at discipline. And this was Craig McDowell. And I was like, okay, but like, it's uncomfortable. Like, I don't like that. I'm kind of afraid that, if I, these guys won't like me, or they might quit or whatever. And Craig's like, he's like, you do this and your team will love you. And I'm like, well, how? I just don't know how. And I can feel like I'm kind of, I'm a little more relaxed now. I'm not as sweaty, but still like, well, what's going on? And so he's like, your team needs to see you come unglued when they cross the line, when they break the rules. And he's like, he's like, stands up and pushes back. And he's like, when you write someone up, he's like, and they come into the office, you need to set the tone right away. And he gets up and he slams the door. He's like, just like this in the corporate office, like just down the hall, there was like two other DMs, or there were those managers about to get reviewed. And those guys were probably thinking I was getting reamed. And he's like, you need to pound on the desk and say, I can't believe you did that. You want to be a site manager one day, and I can't believe you broke this rule. I can't believe you did that. And it's because you care for them so deeply, that you love them, that you're disciplining them like this. And I just remember that's where it sank in. I was like, you're right. That's exactly what I need to be doing. Otherwise, it's empty. If it's all praise and it's no like, oh, hey, please put your phone away. Hey, can you please tuck your shirt in? Hey, shirt's wrinkly. It's okay for today, but just make sure it doesn't happen tomorrow. And it was like, from that point on, I was like, okay, anytime someone steps a toe on the other side of the line, I'm going to call them out because I love them. And the team saw that. At least I hope that's what they saw. So there was a big thing of ruling with the velvet hand and the iron fist. So that made a huge.
We're not saying everybody go pound desks and start flipping tables. What we're saying is like, care. Let's show that show that you're upset, show that you're frustrated, show that you have emotion. Sometimes if you're just quiet and just like, no, it can be like, this guy doesn't really care. And so we're not saying to go hit tables, but but it's okay to interject some energy and some emotion into it.
And that's exactly what I heard was go smack
Good.
it.
Good.
Okay,
Steven, can you stay on the call after the call? Thanks.
We need to talk about some things.
I feel like the whole slamming door wouldn't work for us. We all got those door closers. We just
Yeah. Like, oh man, dang it.
Just aggressively push it closed.
Yeah, aggressively. It's like really slowly
Shaking and everything. That's so funny.
It's good.
Good. So, I think how's this work for us in the workplace? How is this done properly? And so the very first thing that we want to talk about is we always say praise in public, reprimand in private. What this looks like is it's when
Everybody write this down. This is huge. If you don't already know it, write it down.
When something happens and it's good, you want to give that person the opportunity. Say Dan created a raving fan of my site today. He's one of my employees. Dan, hey, you loaded grandma in, you had so much patience. She came in and told me all about it. I want to take Dan. I could take him one-on-one and go, hey, good job, Dan. Hey, you did an awesome job. And that would be good for him and he'd probably be thankful. But what if at the team meeting that night, I go, guys, in front of the whole team and girls, you'll never guess what Dan did. He created this raving fan. She was so grateful. She's telling friends and family about it. It's amazing. It's going to help sales. It's going to help us grow. We're going to hit our goals. The whole team starts clapping. That does more for Dan than me just telling him one-on-one.
Yep. So
we always take the opportunity to praise in public. And then the opposite's true. We want to reprimand in private, where it's one-on-one. If I was to tear Dan apart and say, Dan, I can't believe you weren't patient with that grandma. I couldn't find neutral. She yelled at me in the office and, oh my gosh, if I were to say that in front of the team, they're like, Dan doesn't know how to load. He's going to be humiliated. And my leadership to him, he's going to be like, why would you stab me in the back like that and be so rude to me? Versus if I was one-on-one, I go, dude, hey, you say you want to be this manager, you want to be a supervisor, and you can't load or you can't have patience. Like that's the difference. So with you guys, for you guys with the teams, are make sure this is the very first that we're praising in public, that we're doing all this reprimand. Look at reprimand as discipline.
Yep.
They're the same. They're synonymous.
It's even like that's even adjustments. That's the staff and the rod. It's not just, oh, you reprimand or like you write up in private. It's like you do even like course corrections. You help them in private. Like, so
yeah,
because it can still be embarrassing. Even the little stuff can get embarrassing.
Yeah, but as long as they know that you care for them and you love them, that's going to be they're going to overlook the embarrassment.
Yeah.
When someone points out something in your teeth, would you rather walk around all day with something in your teeth or have a friend that points that out? It's embarrassing at first, but then you're like, gosh, thank you. You're the only one that told me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's kind of the same thing. So how is it done improperly? So I think when we're disciplining others, sometimes you could cut down. I think you could cut down the person and say, I can't believe you're so stupid that you did this. But instead, what we want to do, come unglued about the action that they did and not the person that they are. We always want to talk about the action, because behavior can be changed, but people and kind of who we are really doesn't change. And they can have that mentality. So
what was that one more time? That sounded good.
Yeah, acknowledge the action that they did and not the person who they are.
Yeah.
Cool. Emotional. So, and I think this kind of ties in with that as well, as when it comes time to discipline, don't be emotional about it. Being, yes, pound tables, whatever, let them see you're emotional, but don't take it personally. Don't say, you made me look like a fool, or I can't believe you did this to me. I had to cover your shift because you called out. Like, you did that to me. I had a birthday party and to go to, and I had to miss it, and all stuff. Like, I think that's where we can kind of, if you're feeling emotional about the person, like you can't be like they personally did something to you, hold back, take some time, talk it through with your manager or something. But that's a big one. Yeah. So cool. Guys and girls, raise your hand. I know I keep saying that. Sorry.
People.
I just need to start saying y'all more. Just y'all. Okay. Who wants more authority with their team.
Anybody?
More authority
Oh,
with the
like-
people that they're
like no hands. Oh, we got some
that
hands.
we're leading. Cool.
I
We
got
got
some
some wise words for you. Write
Well,
this down.
I guess one. What is
Wait,
authority?
hold on. What's that?
What is authority?
Talk about it right after.
Yes, sir. See, that's what authority is. He told me
There
to
we go.
change it. I changed it.
Boom. Guys, so write this down. Authority. If you want authority with your team, you will get this. There is no authority without fear. There's no fear without accountability. And there's no accountability without consequences. I'll leave it up for a minute, but I'll repeat it. There's no authority without fear. There's no fear without accountability. And there's no accountability without consequences. So consequences are what come from discipline. Discipline and consequences, they're kind of a byproduct of one another. They're produced only when someone's held accountable. Do you see that? So we work backwards through here. Consequences can't come without accountability. Fear is a byproduct of accountability. And a healthy level of it is necessary, and it's good. Fear is healthy, and we need to have that. I don't know if anyone that would say fear is not good. And there's a certain level of fear that's good and bad, right? But I think this type, and when it comes to authority, we need to have a fear of authority. And the reasons why it's good is because it keeps order. So think about this. If you guys are driving down the street, down the highway, and all of a sudden you see a cop pulled on the side of the road, what do?
Everybody does this.
Everyone
I don't know.
taps on the brake, right? And you see a cop, no matter how fast you're going. And the reason is because as soon as you see the cop, your body gets flush with fear. It's the adrenaline that dumps quickly. And you're like, okay, what's going on? But there's a certain level of fear that we hit. It's hilarious. And so authority cannot be given without fear. And the healthy level of fear that we have, like in that metaphor for the police officer, is we have a fear and we have a respect for the authority and for the authority that he represents. You guys represent Watershed and the authority of the owners. That's why the blue shirts, that's why you wear them. And so the team to have fear of that and to respect that and to give you their authority comes ultimately from discipline and accountability.
Willie, are you there? Willie, can you unmute for a second? How did you feel? Let me give me an example. When back in Arizona and you'd see Vince's truck pull on property, what would you think or feel? Vince is here. Right?
No, I mean, there was a healthy fear. I mean, this guy meant business. I mean, I've been working with Vince for 17 years, and man, one thing I know, this guy is very, very passionate. When you talk about like slamming the table or whatever, I mean that's Vince, but he only had to tell me once. So it's like when he's on the property, it's like, okay, I know this guy means serious. I need to, yeah.
But did you believe that Vince loved you?
Oh, without a doubt. I mean, yeah, I guess.
Yeah. But
yeah, that's how he showed love.
Yeah. You believe that he had the best interest of the site and you in mind when he would correct you?
Without a doubt. Without a doubt.
You wouldn't say that you're afraid of him, but you fear his leadership. You fear that that you're going to be held accountable and you're going to think of everything that you maybe fell short on or whatever. He's going to find it. And like, there's a healthy level of fear that Willie would have, even with someone he knows that loves him, cares for him, and that you know that you'd be held accountable to what would be shortcoming, right?
For sure. 100%.
Yeah. But that was good for you, wasn't it?
It was great for me.
Yeah, it probably shaped you into being the district manager that you are today. That you
still have that fear.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's good. That's healthy. So authority.
Thanks, Willie.
Thanks, Willie.
I got you, bud.
There's two ways that you get to have authority with your team. You can either usurp the authority. I forget if it was like
No,
this, but which is to take it by force. So you can take the authority by force by swinging around a fear, or you can have the authority delegated to you from the people. And delegated is to be freely given. So there's these mentalities of, you might hear the word usurp authority from someone who overtakes like a kingdom or something like that. Like they take it by force. They take the throne by force. And so you can have that from a team. You can take it by force and say, all right, guys, listen up. I'm going to lead by fear and intimidation. I'm going to write you guys up for every little infraction. Actually, it wouldn't even be that. I would say, if you don't do this, I'm going to fire you. Yeah, that's really what it is. And it's you get things accomplished and you have authority with them, but it's not long lived and the people aren't happy. Or you can have that authority delegated to you where your team gives you their authority or gives you your authority.
They want to follow
and
you.
respect.
They want to
because
follow.
they want to follow you. Yeah. They want to follow your lead. And that's the kind that I want. I'm sure that's what all of us want. So it's big. So I want to run through a couple little examples before we go, but like I think let's go through examples for kind of real world, real life things. So let's pretend for a moment this never happens with Watershed at all, but let's pretend that someone shows up 5 minutes late.
No.
I know. I can't believe it. It probably happens at our competition, but never with us. But say this crazy thing happened. Someone shows up 5 minutes late.
Yeah.
What do you do? So I think for this example, the first thing you do is pull them aside, because remember, we praise in public and reprimand in private. So you pull them aside privately. We don't announce to everyone that shift one's about to leave and, oh my gosh, everyone's waiting on you. It's just the two of you, right? And you want to let them know here, dude, you broke the policy. Here's the law that was broken. Here's this is the law. I'm the policeman, right? Like, let them know, hey, you got to show up at 1 o'clock and it's 1:05. So let them know. If it's the first time, it's okay to give grace. Hey, you've showed up on time for 3 months now. This is the first time. I'm going to extend grace. But always let them know what to expect for discipline if they break that policy again. Hey, here's the reminder. If you show up late again, it's going to be a write-up. You might get sent home, all this kind of stuff. And then we always want to remember to have the paperwork side of this. So even though it's a conversation, every employee needs to have an employee notes sheet in their folder. So this should be written down, in that folder, and just said, hey, so-and-so was 5 minutes late. They showed up, they're scheduled at 1, showed up at 1:05. Gave them grace and told them if it happens again, it's going to be a write-up and we might send them home. And so that's clear. It's crystal clear. The next time, if that employee is late again, we can't say, hey, you've been on time. We're going to give you grace again. You have to do what you said you were going to do. Otherwise, they're not going to give you that authority, right? So we have to back that up and support that. And it's not on you. You didn't make them late that day. They chose to be late for whatever reason, right? And so there's it's okay to have that conversation in the dialogue, but we still need to have kind of the proper documentation. We always want to write down, even good and bad on that employee notes page. I hear all the time from Teresa where she gets calls from site managers going, hey, it's time, we need to let this person go. And she goes, okay, well, what kind of documentation do you have from previous discipline with them? And there's nothing, or maybe one write-up, but or we're inconsistent with the write-up. So it's vital that we have that paperwork, because when it comes time for that person to go, if that's the case, we don't want anyone to go, but if that is, all of that paperwork from that discipline and from those conversations will help your case, and it will help the team. So make sure we're doing that. So cool. So here's another example. Someone comes to work completely unshaven. They have the 2-day shadow. Again, step 1, pull them aside so it's just the two of you. 2, let them know that they broke the policy. And then I guess 3 is the same thing, right? If it's the first time, it's okay to give grace. However, this is the line, right? This is the appearance standard. You have a company to protect, you have a site to protect. So now this person is out of uniform. It's different than just being late. And so what you can say is, hey, here's the line, you crossed it, but my job is to make sure that everyone that's on the clock right now that's getting paid by the company is within these standards, within these guidelines that the owners have set. And so you need to clock out, you need to go, and I'm going to show you grace now, and I'm not going to send you home completely, but I'm going to send you to go across the street to Walgreens and get a razor, come back and shave, and when you're ready in uniform, you can clock back in and finish your shift. And that's giving grace. So they can come in and you're still having a hard line. And so write it down on the employee notes page, let them back in, and then say you show up again a couple weeks later, or they show up and they're not shaving again. In that instance, the discipline needs to be more severe. And so I would just send that person home for the day and I'd write them up and I'd say, hey, we had this instance a couple weeks ago. I showed grace. This happened again. So now the discipline needs to be more severe, where they go home and then there's a write-up. If they never do it again, they made the change, right? And that's the goal. That's the hope, is that pain of the discipline was so severe that it made the change in their behavior.
But discipline's also so beautiful for what it does for your rest of your team. When they know of like, oh, that guy got sent home because he didn't shave. Like, I'm gonna come to work. If I want my job and I want my well-being to grow and thrive at Watershed, all right, I need to be well shaved, or whatever the policy is, right?
Yeah.
But when you have a leader that really stands for those things, it's like it becomes like the I don't know, the common ground. And everybody knows where they stand with the team because of the leader.
And it makes it so easy when we're ruling by the policies and procedures. When we have that handbook and that is the line, it's clear when someone's crossed the line and everyone's aware of it. It's not this kind of gray area where, oh, when Dan's the manager, he allows this, and when Justin's the manager, he allows that. I think that's the whole point. So I think for all of us, when it comes to discipline, we've got to be relentless. We've got to be consistent constantly. Right. And this is with all of the employees in all the teams, is that we have to do it and do it promptly. We have to discipline timely. Think of what happens if we let things go. It's more work to do it this way, but I promise it is so much more rewarding in the long term. Just like Dan said, for the optics or for the rest of the team or for what happens, there's such fruit that comes in it. So, yeah. And the way I look at it is that with the discipline, if the employee's behavior is changed, awesome, great. It's a win-win. But if their behavior does not change, then we're not serving that employee by keeping them employed here. They need to be they're better served by going somewhere else to work. So that's
Hey, Justin.
yes.
Yes, sir. One thing I have a question about is, why is it important to, when you see something out of line, to address it as soon as possible, rather than looking and say, hey, this guy's not shaving, maybe he'll shave tomorrow, and then if he doesn't, then I'll say something. Why is it better to go ahead and say it now?
Yeah, great question. And I think the big thing is that it's uncomfortable to stop what I'm doing and go address something. So what that does to someone is they go, whoa, you were doing cash from the XBTs and you stopped to correct how I'm loading. Oh my gosh, this must be important.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And like that now it says something to that employee, versus if you wait and they don't do it, and then you call them out the next day and you're like, hey, I was going to say something yesterday, but I didn't change. It's less, there's less value in that item or whatever that behavior is. That kind of help?
Yes.
Yeah. And then you also correct it too. We've got a site to protect. So if you don't call out the loading, someone's doing fist stops instead of two hands and they're working a whole shift, that's 500 customers potentially that could have come in contact with an inconsistent loader, and it's not done to our standard. And so calling that out, like, we're below par now. We're not up to where we need to be. So that's the other reason by doing it.
You mind if I share something?
Yeah, please.
All right, I'm going to share something. This, as you know, Way of the Shepherd, probably my favorite book. I'm going to read probably my favorite little excerpts from chapter 3. But it really pertains to what we're talking about here today. Great leaders instill a sense of meaning and belonging in their followers by putting their personal imprint of who they are and what they stand for on their people. That imprint becomes the common ground where the people collectively meet and identify with their leader. A leader's personal mark, in other words, becomes the common denominator of the organization. Great leaders leave their mark by constantly communicating their values and sense of mission. They are tirelessly calling their people to engage in the cause. They know that their people are easily distracted by the many pulls of life, and they're continually calling them back to the mission and back to the purpose of being. This last part is, I just love this word, and he said it, and that's why it cued me to think about it, is relentlessly communicate your values and sense of mission. I love that word, relentless. It's like not ceasing. Like, I don't know, Jay is popping into my mind right now. Jay doesn't change from the guy I know him to be. Like, he's the same on Tuesday as Sunday as Tuesday. Like, if he saw something wrong, he would correct it on either day of any moment. And that word is relentless. It's like a river. It's constant. It's not, it doesn't turn off.
Unwavering.
So Jay, sorry to give you some love. But
No, he's not.
he's like, I'm all about it. But the idea is that it's constant, it's relentless. And so when we are inconsistent as leaders, and we're like, on Tuesday, when we just had this hard talking to, now I'm going to follow the policies, and then the next week it's like, oh, it's kind of slouching back down, and like you're losing your people of like what they believe you to be because you're inconsistent. And so I think we've all done that once in our careers, where we are like, all right, now I'm really going to hold to the policies. And all right, then it starts to get lazy. And like, so anyways, I just want to encourage all of us to have that word relentless in mind, because it's a powerful word, relentless.
Yeah. And that's, I love that story. I think that's so good. To have that in your back pocket, whenever you need it. I think one of the things for us to do is that staying consistent with it. If you haven't been consistent with discipline with the team, it's okay to stop and go, guys, let's have a team meeting. I'm sorry, I have not been consistent with this, but from this point on, I'm going to be, this is who I am. This is what I'm doing. This is what was just revealed to me at work, or this is what we just started talking about. And I'm serious about this. And this is something I'm going to start doing going forward. So therefore, don't be surprised when you're called out for things that you weren't called out for before, because I care for you so much, because I want you guys to be the best that you can be. And that's really, I think the heart of it is that, it's very difficult to be inconsistent.
Absolutely.
You're not going to get much authority with the team with that, because they're not going to know who they're getting. So,
ladies and gentlemen, does anybody have any questions for Justin or myself on this topic? And if not, stretch and get out of here. You guys have your DM discussion guide. You're going to be able to meet with your district manager. Tyler, I sent the report to you. Everybody at home, unfortunately, you don't have your district manager with you. Maybe you could still join during Zoom if you like, but everybody who has a DM next to you, or Tyler GM in it, I want you guys to go through the 3 questions that we sent to you. They're good. You can unpack them. And hopefully if there's anything that is unclear, you can get right with the leader that you trust the most as your district manager and unpack some of the things that we've kind of discussed today. Does anyone have anything that they want to ask, or before we go? Applin's already out. They're just like done.
They're like done. Iron out, spend some time with those discussions. Like, there's some fun, good, just be honest, authentic with it. I think we'll have some good fruit from them. So excited to see how this goes. Cool. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Sarah,
Thanks, y'all.
why do you like giving such like a just
I'm not gonna catch fingers.
there's a smile.
There it is.
Hey, guys.
Oh, there you literally was like good. See you guys. Bye.